Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Scott. This is my webinar for Education and Training Foundation's set webinar series. This is my topic, Engage, Enhance, Empower, which is related to my book, Learn Technology, which you can see on the right hand side. I'll grant that it's not always clean cut as 3 steps, but I think we all like alliterations, so I kind of wrapped it around that. So the overview of this webinar then, so I'll just introduce myself a little bit better, and then I'll go into the Engage, which is a bit about why I wrote the book and such. Enhance, so how the book, or how I've mapped the book to Education Training Foundation's digital professional teaching framework. Empower, a couple activity examples that's from the book, and I can share your practices and just get a little bit more involved once you're feeling a bit more confident and competent with learning technology. Then I'll share some reviews that I received from my book, resources, so some further reading links basically, questions, so any questions you might have, but I have put a couple on there just to get you thinking, and that's what I'll close with. So just a little bit about myself. So I broadly describe myself as a digital learning specialist, but I did start out in further education as a learning technologist in 2010. I'm now in higher education as a digital practice advisor at Nottingham University. I've been there since end of October 2017. So just coming up to 2 years. I'm a qualified teacher, assessor, lead internal verifier, and I've got an MSc in Technology and Learning. I'm a certified member of the Association for Learning Technology, and I was the winner of Learning Technologist of the Year 2016. Outside my current role, well, full-time role, I'm a consultant, writer, and author. I'm an external quality assurer for digital skills and digital learning design qualifications. And I assisted in writing the Enhanced modules, which you can see on the Enhanced platform today. So just a little bit of background of why I wrote the book. So why did I write it? So basically, there's a lot of publications and materials out there to support those in teacher training, but I felt that, well, from my experience being in FE, there wasn't that much out there to support people with learning technology, other than just go out there and kind of like play with it. But as it's important with like teacher training or throughout it, understanding the pedagogies and the strategies. It's the same for, well, I feel it's the same for the learning technology. Rather than just using learning technology with no identified purpose or not knowing what the value is that it's adding to the learning teaching process. So in this book, I've simplified that. It's accessible and it's practical with lots of activities in there to help think what is it you're trying to achieve, why you're doing it, and just generally question your practices on using learning technology. So there's no book out there that's like this. There's a gap in the market for it, so I just thought there was a clear need there. And the feedback that I'll show you later that I received from people, it is doing what it's intended to be doing, which is really good, and good feedback for myself. There's other books out there as well. I just think I should mention that they're to do with like learning technology and digital skills and things, but they tend to be written for the people that's already digitally like capable and already confident with learning technology, but there's nothing out there that writes to those that either, well, leads on to the next question, who is a book for, which are either like new to using learning technology, or they might already be using it but want to make the most of it. So yeah, what was the book for? Well, obviously it's in the title, it's for FE teachers and assessors, but it's all relatable to those who work in HE as well. If you're familiar with Anne Gravel's work, it's very much similar to her style, where it's very simplified, accessible and practical, which pretty much comes hand in hand really. But if you are looking for in particular like game-changing sort of technologies, stuff like that, then this book's probably not for yourself, because I don't specifically focus on the technologies themselves. I do like dropping a few, but I kind of like focus on the learning like type as such, which I'll go into a little bit more detail a little bit later on. But yeah, I don't focus on what's out there, what's big and what's upcoming sort of thing, but purely on the pedagogical purpose and underpinning frameworks that you might need and use for learning technology. So for those that might already feel confident, they might not see this book for themselves, or might not recognise themselves of needing it or wanting it, which obviously leads me to the next question. So if you are using a lot of technology, then it's probably not quite clear that you might need something like this, but there is a lot of like models and principles and things that you might find useful, and again a lot of activities to help you question and reflect on what is it you're trying to do and where is it adding value, all that sort of stuff. So next I've got a couple of quotes which I feel to me are quite good for like kickstarting motivation within us. Some of them, well, a couple of them that you might already be aware of. So Education and Training Foundation results from their survey, the Learner Digital Perspectives survey. So 37% of learners felt that teachers lack confidence in digital skills and therefore create a barrier to using technology in learning. So it's good that learners are recognising that they require current, relevant and up-to-date digital skills so they're ready for the workplace. So again, this is something the book addresses, and encouraging yourself to really understand what are your digital capabilities, which is featured in chapter 1, but I've got a little bit more detail on that later. The next one is not to be seen as a threat, but I can see why it may do to some. But technology won't replace good teachers, but teachers who use technology effectively will replace those who don't. So that long argument has been going around for ever since learning technology became prominent, that technology will replace teachers. It's not. It's how we kind of like harness that, if you like, and use it to really augment the teaching role in a lot better and creative ways. So it's here to stay, as we all know. It's always ever evolving, but how can we better utilise it for the teaching role? And the last part, so the teachers who use technology effectively will replace those who don't. Well, this is the reason why enhanced modules have been created, so it can help and support people to be really good at using learning technology, and obviously increase their digital skills so they can be at the top of their game. So I'll leave those two with yourselves, but I like to think that good for giving a bit of a boost of motivation there. So there's a set members discount which I'm sure will be given at the end of this webinar. So just a little tour of the book content as a glance. So there's 6 chapters and it's around the learning teaching cycle, which again you're probably aware of or seen in Anne Gravel's work. I just find it very accessible and it pretty much covers our roles as educators. There's a nice quote there in the middle that was given via Amazon. So it says, "It's short, accessible and full of prompts to help teachers describe and critique their own approaches to digital learning. This is the most straightforward, user-friendly book I've ever read on the subject." And I just feel that pretty much sums up what the book is about and what it's aimed at, really, what it's targeted for doing. So let's start with chapters then. So Identify needs is chapter 1. Purpose of IoT and e-learning. So I'll just give a little summary of what's in there and read along with me if you like. So identify needs, so that just kind of focus on the role of like learning technology and e-learning. I do say IoT there because I find that in FE that tends to be the acronym for learning technology, information learning technology. So I've used that throughout. It focuses on what digital capability is and why it's important, why we should be working towards that or developing ourselves in it even, digital practitioner. Second chapter, plan and design, so that's more about learning design as a process, translating your face-to-face stuff into the digital realm, what's available to yourself. It's also IoT things. And again, I'm not focused on tools specifically, but I do drop a couple in there. But it's more about the learning types and what you're trying to achieve, and if it's the best tool for the task in hand. Creating e-learning activities and resources, and that's one of probably the most popular parts of the book that I feel that people have been drawn to, because that's one of the biggest challenges that teachers are faced with, getting e-learning activities in the VLE and such, rather than just a repository of documents. So chapter 3, deliver and facilitate. So that's more about delivering learning through technology, or teaching through technology. So I talk about how you set up these digital tools and systems to be successful in the classroom or outside. E-tutoring, so facilitating online activities. Accessibility and assistive technologies. It's got a prominent mention, section. Excuse me. Chapter 4, assess. So designing e-assessments, and I talk about learning technology and quality assurance process. Chapter 5 is evaluate. So evaluating your own practice with learning technology and the impact it's having on your learners and yourself, and perhaps your organisation. And introduce learning analytics there. Chapter 6, keep up to date. So continuing professional development, and opportunities for social networking, peer collaboration, and sharing promoting IT practices, which is what I kind of end on the empower section of this webinar. So I'm saying it is. I know for definite it is, but it's simplified, accessible and practical, and as a result you should feel a bit more confident and competent using learning technology. So now I'll just show you a flick-through video that gives you a preview of what's inside the book, in terms of the activities, or some of the activities, some illustrations, and just a general look inside it, and some noteworthy sort of sections in it. So I'll just let you watch this. Okay. Right, so this is the enhanced section, if you like. So what I've done here is mapped my book chapters to Education Training Foundations, Digital Teaching Professional Framework. I'll not go through this in detail because I'm just conscious of time. So what I've done here, so in each chapter I've just listed like the main sections and potential activities that's in there that relate to the framework. So how I feel it probably best work for yourself is that when you're working through the enhanced modules on the platform, there's an interactive digital teaching professional framework. We can click on each section, which will take you to the related enhanced modules. So I would think that is a good way to approach this. If you're like interested in planning your teaching on those particular enhanced modules, so you'll click on that section and it'll bring up all the enhanced modules. So you could use the book, which I would think is a very ideal companion of working through those modules. So there's obviously activities on there, but you could use a book to extend your learning and practice and potential underpinning models and principles that relate to that. So that's what I've kind of done here. So I've grouped some of these things together. So I'll just take like chapter 2 for example, because that is like the biggest like section in the book, which again it all comes down to learning technology. It is a complex thing, just like teaching, and how it's simplified. But as part of that process, there's a learning design section, and that's more about the creative and collaborative element of like translating your face-to-face stuff into the online realm, which I mentioned earlier. But it's the biggest chapter, and I feel it's the one where you really do analyse what you're really trying to achieve with learning technology and digital tools and systems in general. But yeah, just taking that as an example, there's some really good, I'll say, activities in there. I mean, like the Quick Learn Technology Planner, for example. If you're familiar with the Teacher Toolkit's 5-minute lesson plan, it's quite similar, but based on Learn Technology itself. Just at a glance sort of thing, how you can potentially plan for stuff like that. Sourcing and availability of like digital technologies, and I mentioned before that our focus is on learning types, which I do, which is based on Diana Laurelard's learning types. So I'm not focused specifically on the array of digital technologies and what's in thing and what's upcoming or what's emerging or what's game changing. I focus on like presentation tools, social tools, elements like that, so it can help you align what you're really trying to achieve. So if your activity is based on like a social activity, discussions, what tools is there that's that are specifically for socializing, if you will. So hopefully that would be helpful. So I'll put this on a blog post that I'll put out after this webinar, and I'll put this table on so you can look at it in more detail. But like I said, I envisage that when you're working through enhanced modules, then you can look at this and look at the chapters where these like topics are more emphasized, and you'll see that there's crosses there as well. And that doesn't mean that there's no topic relevant in there. There probably is, but it's more emphasized where I've identified it under a relevant chapter, as you can see there. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of a framework, to use this or use the Learn Technology Handbook as a companion guide. Right, on to the Empower section of the webinar then. So this is content taken from chapter 6 of my book, Keep Up to Date. So hopefully as a result, after engaging with enhanced modules or using my book as a companion alongside that, using the models, frameworks and principles in there, hopefully you would feel a bit more confident and competent as a result. So what I'm encouraging you is, if you feel comfortable to do, is probably do some of these suggestions. Deliver a small scale session like a micro teach with a colleague or a small group of people. Perhaps it could be presenting at a conference or event. Again, it doesn't have to be big events, it could be small events. You record a video or audio of you demonstrating or discussing something to do with Learn Technology that you've tried. Or it could be an activity or resource that you've designed and you could share that with colleagues so they can take and adapt to that. Or it could be some sort of like blog post or small scale case study of what you've been using, trying, or it could even be a review of a Learn Technology tool or system that you've been using. So for peer collaboration, emphasis on the informal here with peer observation, because you might already have like processes in place in your organisations. But you could speak to colleagues that you know that or have been told that other colleagues are using some really interesting Learn Technology tool systems with their learners. So you could arrange to see them and then just make sure that you take adequate notes of what things you've seen, but more so plan in advance what you want to see and how they facilitate that with Learn Technology, because that could really help increase your own confidence as well and competence. Social networking, so there's obviously a lot of opportunities for that, but not everybody obviously wants to be on social media for various reasons, but it does have its advantages for professional networking and finding resources and collaborating with other people. So also Twitter for me would be at the top, and there's a new periodic table for FE educators. If you search that on Twitter, hopefully you'll come across it, but it was a periodic table, a graphic that was produced by Mark Anderson, and it's got a lot of FE educators basically on there with a profile picture and their Twitter handle, so you can easily find them and obviously follow and connect with other people on there. Definitely worth a search. There's LinkedIn, obviously connect with other people on there and join a lot of online groups and stuff. But besides those two, there's a huge amount of online communities that you could potentially join. So I'll end on this slide with Scaffold. So I recently wrote a piece for the Intuition magazine that's for set members. This was the autumn edition, so do look this up. I can't remember what page it's on, but it's I introduce J. Salmon's model, which is obviously in the book itself, to facilitate online learning as a scaffold, but I've kind of like had a different spin on it, how you can use it yourself to support your own confidence and increase your digital skills in using learning technology. So it's definitely worth a look. Right, so coming towards the end now, so I'll just show some bits and pieces of feedback I've gained on the book. Again, you can, this is being recorded so that you can look at these in more detail, but this, I think this was in the spring edition of Intuition magazine. James Michael Maltby at Plumpton College. He gave a really good review of my book. I think what it came, well, obviously it's in front of what he wrote, but it's interesting where he mentioned that I've got two particular sort of themes I keep coming back to, which are the technical hurdles that we tend to usually experience, whether in classroom or outside, and how we implement these learning technology solutions that we've got, the activities and resources we put out there, and the digital skills that we need to obviously make that successful. And obviously you mentioned, so it's an educational guide, not a technical guide, which is a good nod to what type of book this is and the nature of it. A couple of reviews here. Obviously the top one, it was mentioned in the book content at a glance, in the middle circle, but again, just showing some real good value of this. And it's good for me to see because it's actually doing what it says on the tin. It's working for people, and people really liking the accessible and practical format of it. A few more here. Even got an endorsement from Anne Gravels herself, and she acknowledges that it's accessible and informative. Very much similar style to herself. So here are some links to further reading, some of which are links to the book itself. And like I said, there's a rationale and further feedback that I received on the book on there as well. Some links to the intuition pieces that I've written previously, and a really good one from the test. How you can build confidence in using learning technology, again, which features some advice that I mentioned in my book. The Teaching Times one, H5P, again, that's a really good tool, and I've taught previously before. Webinar I did back in June for set members, so do check that one out, because I'll show that in more detail, and it's really useful for yourself if you're interested in creating e-learning activities and resources. And this mapping one, that's something I just did back in January. Again, that's how my book content mapped to that particular qualification, and it adds, I'll talk a little bit more detail about what kind of theories and frameworks there is in there to support that qualification. So that builds on the slide that I showed how my book maps to the enhanced modules, so definitely worth a check out. I reviewed the Anne Gravels chapter in a recent Principles and Practice of Teaching and Training book. It was chapter 8, Technology Enhanced Teaching and Learning. So again, some advice from when I was writing this book, kind of suggested to Anne that some of these principles and frameworks ought to appear in there. So that's another good thing to look for. So a couple of videos. The book launch itself is the link there, and we've already seen the flip through, but we want to see it again. That is on YouTube. Right, and finally, so what questions do you have? Is there anything that you want to ask me about the book, about its content, some things you want to expand a little bit more on, or went a bit too fast on, sort of thing? So please feel free to ask any questions. But there's about 3 questions there, just to ask yourself. And thank you for watching.